So it's been a while since our last video, and you'd be right to wonder if things are just going terribly over here. But the truth is, we've just been busy making the game, so let's get into it. If you're new here, Zach and I have been working on a wizard sandbox shooter.
And we've been cooking!
We've got fireballs flying, tornadoes and earth pillars, frozen wizard popsicles, beard armor, and lots more. We have plenty of polish remaining to do, but we're already having a blast just playtesting. Zach and I have spent hours tweaking and getting the mechanics dialed in. I really think that we've got something here. So now we're ready to show it off a bit.
My naming scheme. Did you just lightning strut kill us?
Let's start with the concepts. We've explained this before, but it bears repeating. Most shooters just give you a couple of tools in your toolkit. A couple of guns, a grenade, and then there's a whole meta of which guns are the best for what scenario. Hero shooters give you a list of fixed abilities around a character theme. Battle royales and arena shooters tend to be about exploring and looting your way to a good loadout. Unreal Tournament, one of my favorite games of all time, is on the upper end of the weapons range with a dozen weapons at once. There is a very good reason for this limitation. Any more than that, and you'd never be able to manage those abilities in an FPS. Heck, even Minecraft limits you to 9 slots in the hotbar. But we think magic should be a big freaking toolbox. A wizard should be like a Swiss Army knife of magical abilities. But you only ever see that in tactical games, where you have time to freeze the action and optimize your strategy. Because giving a player 30 abilities in an FPS is a problem of ergonomics. So we set out to solve this problem in a slick and intuitive way. Our first attempt at this was interesting, in a horribly misguided kind of a way. But you can't spell spells without some L's, so let's talk about what didn't work. Our original concept was to have players cast spells by yelling magic words into a microphone. Yelling into a mic to cast spells was literally the entire premise that everything else was built on for this game. So it's funny because now we've abandoned this idea entirely for something so much simpler. And I know, before you get into the comments to tell me about some other game that's about casting spells by yelling into a microphone, we know about them. All of them. Now, I think there was something in the water in 2025. In any case, our idea was this. I really loved Magicka back in the day, where you could combine elements to make a ton of neat spells to blast your way through the game. So for our game, you'd have a magical grammar. You'd have a magic word for, say, fire, and then you could modify it to make the effect larger or more powerful, kind of like D&D 5th edition sorcerer meta magic. And then you had to have a suffix after the modifier. And then there were conjunctions so that you could combine one spell element with another, like making fire plus water equals steam. And then you could bypass the suffix to get a fast cast variant if you were in a pinch. And then you'd create the shape of the spell by... You see the problem already, right? Obviously, people were going to mess up the spell grammar all the time. And we knew that going in. So we actually designed the game around the whole premise of badly cast spells. If you flub the grammar, you get a magical mishap. Maybe your fireball flies in an arc instead of going straight, or maybe it flies in a circle and flies right back at you and your team. Maybe instead of summoning a rocky pillar, you summon a hole in the ground. Maybe you set your hat on fire. Maybe you explode into bees. I actually got pretty far into this. I trained a neural network to basically read in mic inputs and convert them over into spell tokens. But we bailed on this whole mic approach for a few reasons. For starters, Mage Arena went viral. We had never heard of them prior to that. We really thought we were doing something completely unique. And then right behind them came Yap Yap. So we realized that no matter how different our spell system was, we were going to be forever compared to those other games. Issue number 2 is we make games in the Godot engine. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, at the time, the Godot engine had some real problems when it came to processing microphone inputs, especially on macOS, which is what I develop on and what Zach develops on. Some microphones just wouldn't work at all because the sample rate on the mic didn't match what the game was expecting. And technically, we could solve that, but also connecting some mics while the game was running would cause the game to simply crash. Now, this is because of the way that Godot is interfacing with the operating system. Today, it looks like somebody has actually fixed these issues, but at the time, we had to ask ourselves if we were willing to crack open a game engine and deal with this audio issue ourselves. We're just two dudes, and we've got a game to make. So as much as we support open source software, that seemed like a real risk. But reason 3 is really the most important reason that we decided to move on from this construct. The fun factor. Sure, you'd have people standing atop towers like Saruman, casting long, complex spells only to get sniped. Headshot. But spellcasting would be slow, and that means that the pace of the game would be slow. Yelling magical gibberish into a microphone is a lot of fun, I promise you. But it's also really annoying for your spouse, your parents, your kids, your dog, your roommate, your neighbors, really anyone unfortunate enough to be in your vicinity while playing a game like that. The magical mishaps were funny, and they would have made for some streamer gold for a little while. But then it would have gotten old. Anyways, we shifted gears. Instead of trying to be clever on the inputs, we decided to ask ourselves how we could make managing a bunch of spells intuitive, where the controls could be simple, but more importantly, that the spell concepts would be easy to internalize. Because if we could accomplish that, we'd end up with a really interesting sandbox game. It would be easy to pick up and also have a nice high skill ceiling. The first thing we did was lock in on natural elements, things like water, wind, earth, and fire. This limitation is in support of ergonomics. Most gamers already have expectations on what elements should do, so it's a lot easier to internalize those mechanics than things like arcane blast and magic missile and those kinds of tropes. Earth is rock stuff. Summon stone pillars to make defenses, or staircases up a cliffside. Maybe make a stone shield. Air should let you push enemies, fall slowly, or yeet yourself across the map. Fire should do burning damage. Lightning should be zappy, and water should interact with both of those in logical ways. Water should put out the fire, and if you get electrocuted while you're wet, you're having a bad day. Frost should slow you down, unless you're wet, in which case it should turn you into a wizard popsicle. Most gamers have these kinds of ideas already internalized. So we landed on 6 elements: earth, air, fire, water, lightning, and frost. You swap these with the scroll wheel or the number keys. Exact same concept as Minecraft, Unreal Tournament, and lots of other games. Each element has 4 spell shapes. Spell shape meaning how you're casting that element. Shoot, self, strut, and summon. Shoot is just a projectile. Self applies a status effect to yourself, which can also counter other statuses, like water putting out fire. Strut is mobility-oriented spells. Summon places something out into the world, like summoning a stone pillar, or a wall of fire, or a tornado. Each of these is just mapped to a button. These controls are conceptually familiar to anyone who's played a hero shooter. Left click, right click, Q, and E. Or remap it to whatever. And the 4 buttons are also controller friendly because it's just your 4 triggers. So how well does this system work? It turns out the combination of element plus spell shape is remarkably intuitive. Take a wild guess what shoot plus fire is. Yeah, you throw a fireball. Water plus self? Congrats, now you're all wet. Air plus summon? That drops a tornado.
You son of a...
Even if you forget what a specific combo does in the heat of battle, after 5 minutes in this game, your basic expectations are gonna play out. This is a system that's really easy to pick up. And yet, with all of these spells at your disposal, it actually has a high skill ceiling. There are several game mechanics that we developed and tested, but ultimately decided to drop. At one point, we had a circle spell shape, which just affects the area immediately around the player. But in playtesting, combat never really got up close and personal like that, so it was just kind of muddying the waters. It was an extra ability slot there that no one used. We also had an element called light for a while, which did things like blindness or make enemies glow, like fairy fire style, or mage sight so you could see through walls. But ultimately, no one ever really used it. So if it's not adding fun to the sandbox, it's just muddying the waters. So we dropped that too. Oh, also, we think that we're going to add an ultimate spell shape. Something like what you see in ult in Overwatch or other hero shooters. But we've decided not to implement that just yet. We want to get the balance right without the chaos that that's going to bring. This is already a giant game to try to get properly balanced. Once the core gameplay is properly vetted, then we'll see how ultimates might fit in. All right, so obviously there's plenty of polish left to do, but even the game footage in this video is already outdated. We're moving fast to get this thing finished. So yeah, we have more levels to make and we have more playtesting to do, but the core of the game is there now. And that's really exciting. And you are going to drop down behind me and fireball me.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go. We're good at this. We're good at this.
Fall damage early here. Set up the shot. Set up the shot again.